Jobs.
Jobs.
Yes. Jobs.
To which jobs are you referring?
The jobs of the 21st century.
Okay. And what is your view with regard to the jobs of the 21st century?
That they are going to be harder and harder to find. That they are going to pay less and less in terms of salary. That they are going to be jobs that come without retirement or health care benefits. And that they are going to be non-productive, service sector jobs.
Isn't that a bit on the pessimistic side?
No. Not really. It is simply the truth.
And why is it that you feel this way?
For two simple reasons. First, because the majority of jobs that have been created over the past 40 years have been created due to an increase in access to credit and debt. And those days are ending. And second, because the United States of America no longer makes anything. We have become the world's preeminent consumer. And not only do jobs in the service and retail sectors not pay enough to sustain the workers, but at some point those jobs no longer exist. Because at some point the market becomes supersaturated with people looking for $10 per hour employment.
Go on.
Just look at all of the sectors of the economy. Housing. The internet. Finance. All of these job-producing sectors have been subsidized, over the years, through Ponzi-style economics. All of these sectors have, during the past decades, added jobs because an ever-expanding number of consumers were able to gain access to an ever-expanding amount of credit. But the credit bubble is deflating. The government and the central bank may conspire to try and make more and more credit and debt available to the average woman and man through such policies as quantitative easing and tax cuts and bank bailouts, etc. But there is a limit to the amount of debt that the global economic system will accept. At some point, credit becomes impossible to access, because credit becomes valueless.
What do you mean, credit becomes valueless?
Credit only has value if people believe that it has value. Even if government and central bank policies make access to credit easier and easier, at some point that credit is not trusted as a viable medium of exchange.
And so, what does that have to do with jobs?
Tens of millions of jobs have been created during the past 40 years, and this job creation has been based almost entirely upon a common trust. Trust that credit and debt are, in fact, money. But look what has happened. Millions of jobs in the housing sector have evaporated. And why? Because virtually all of these jobs were created and subsidized by easy access to credit and debt. Debt that was never intended to be repaid. And understand this. Debt that was never meant to be repaid is not money. It is fraud. It is counterfeit. A $10 trillion mortgage Ponzi scheme. A $10 trillion inverted pyramid of debt that ended up creating millions of jobs for carpenters, realtors, interior designers, mortgage underwriters, roofers, chimney sweeps, etc. Do we really believe that those jobs are going to return? Do we really believe that we can continue to extend trillions and trillions of dollars in credit to people who cannot ever have any hope of repaying those obligations?
But that is what the government, and what the Ben Bernanke, are attempting to do, right?
Exactly. The government, and the Ben Bernanke, and the CEOs of the too-big-to-fail banks. They are all working overtime, trying to convince the American people, in essence, that credit and debt are still viable forms of money. And frankly, the American people want to believe them. The American people need credit and debt in order to survive. And this brings me back to the second issue. That we produce nothing.
Yes. Economic growth in the United States is predicated upon spending and consumption, not upon production.
Right. And so, credit and debt are not being extended to businesses so that these companies might produce stuff here, in the United States. Credit and debt are being extended to consumers so that these consumers might go out and buy stuff. Stuff made in China. Stuff made in Vietnam. Stuff made in Mexico. Stuff sold at Walmart, and at Best Buy, and at the corner Jiffy Mart.
Yes. That is true.
And so, back to jobs. I started this discussion by referring to the so-called jobs of the 21st century. And I said that jobs are going to be harder to find. They are going to pay increasingly less money, in both nominal and real terms, than jobs did in the recent past. They are not going to have health care and retirement benefits attached to them. And they are pretty much all going to be in the service and retail sectors of the economy.
And so, what does that mean?
It means less earning power for the average American. It means decreasing access to disposable income. It means an ever-expanding number of Americans who are reliant upon the government for food and energy and housing assistance. It means an underemployment rate of 20+% for decades. And, when the government-sponsored credit and debt bubble finally bursts, when the world rejects credit and debt as actually being a viable medium of exchange, then it means a depression far deeper than any depression that the world has yet to experience.
Grim.
Yes. And we did it to ourselves.
Yes, we did.